Live on WFLA Now. This is Run for Fun with running enthusiast Leigh Spann.
All right, let's go. We are back in the Stream Center for this week's episode of Run for Fun. It's a show that we designed to focus on the joy of running and give you tips to keep it fun and enjoyable, because in the end, if you learn to love the sport, you're going to stick with it. And then, kind of hint, if you're consistent, that's when your endurance and your speed can often increase as well. So I'm your host, Leigh Spann. I'm a meteorologist at WFLA here in Tampa, but I'm also an avid runner. And I really wish when I'd started running, someone had told me that, you can make this fun. You don't have to always attack every run and push until you can't go anymore, because that is a surefire way to burn out. And I was almost there when I ran into my coach Maria. She taught me how to my whole change of thought on how to run, and that it's fun, and we want to spread that.
Oh, so much fun. And actually consistency is the goal, right? That's how we get better. And some of these people that keep doing marathon after marathon after marathon and race after race after race, the biggest thing is making sure you keep injuries at bay, so you can stay consistent.
Yeah, and so believe it or not, running slow is part of the process.
Yes.
People always, when they start running, they're like, "This is how fast I ran. This is how fast I ran," and I'm just like, "I'm just glad you're out there. Take it easy. So you don't have to push yourself so far." So
I dream of the day when we're bragging about our slow pace. I dream of that day.
I
someday,
because I know we've talked about this before, but as a type A person, I usually have to have some sort of goal. So on those slow days, I'm like, how little can I go in the time? And so I try to beat my slow time. You gotta figure out a way to win, even if it's slow.
I just kind of have this thing where I'm like, I want to try to make it feel like I did nothing today. Because I feel like a better athlete when I'm like, I did 6 miles and it felt like nothing.
Which is exactly the opposite of what newbie runners want to feel. And
Yeah,
you think, look at me, I am worn out. I did this great thing.
Sure.
And you got to save that for in small amount of time.
Yes.
The 80-20 rule.
Yes, absolutely.
So 80% of those should not feel like you did anything. Which, speaking of, that's what today's episode is basically sort of the 20%.
Yes,
So this is the
20%.
part that you want to push yourself. Track workouts. We're going to talk a little bit about what those are, how to incorporate them, sort of the 101 of them, and also some track etiquette, because I've been running, with you and for a long time now, and I still get very intimidated about going to a track. I feel like that's where the Olympians are. That's where the 100-meter dash people are, and that's not me.
I can understand that.
And
I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
I don't find it intimidating, but yes, I can see why you could feel that way.
So we're going to try to ease some of that intimidation, so you can what to expect when you get to a track and what to do with the track workout. But before we get to that, Maria, we have our Strava group, right? And we have a big surprise, because we've had a lot more people join our WFLA Run for Fun group. There's 232 of you.
Wow.
So if you don't know what it is, if you haven't been, it's a free app. Strava, Strava, is a free app you download on your phone. And then when you go out for a walk or a run, it sort of keeps up with how fast you've gone, where you've gone, that kind of thing. But we're using it as almost like a social media, a group of us who are, can ask questions, and you're going to help everybody train for a race together. So all 232 of you can train for the same race.
Yeah, we're kind of targeting the BDR 10K, which is Best Damn Race, and it's January 20th. So we're targeting that. And it's really going to only be 3 days a week of running. So we're going to still do 80-20. And really, you can use it for what you want to use it for. If you want to add some easy days, that's fine. I would not add more hard days. That's not going to benefit you. But just follow along with us. And, I'm going to do most things by feel. Although this week we're doing a time trial so that everybody can use their mile time for themselves. So it'll be interesting. It's going to be fun to see.
So once you download the app, go to the groups, go to the clubs, and you'll find WFLA Run for Fun. And please join in. We're going to be out there at in Safety Harbor on January 20th. So if you've been training along, we'd love for you. If you can't do that day, you can still train. You can go back and look and follow it. She's doing weeks at a time.
Yeah. And you can come join us for the party afterwards. We're gonna have a good time. So excited.
It is very fun.
It'll be nice to meet you in person sometime.
So again, today is about track workouts. On Tuesday mornings, before she comes to tape this, she goes out to the track and works with some of your clients. So what is a track workout versus just running fast?
Okay, so That's kind of a loaded question.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a track group on Monday nights that meets in Wesley Chapel, and we have a track group that meets on Tuesday mornings at Coleman. And it's mostly for community. I would say that probably most of my clients had never been on the track before and none of them were sure really what to do unless they were doing it in high school, which is very much different than how we do it as adults. So everybody was a little intimidated, but I've been really working hard with them to get them to understand that it really is just a tool in the toolbox of things that we like to use. Leigh never does track.
No, I don't think I've ever did a real track workout on a track. And so what that means for me when Maria schedules that for me is that I have to look at it, like use my watch to say like, okay, I'm running 400 meters, which is about a quarter mile. And I can, judge those, but it would be so much easier on a track that is well marked. So what are all the marks mean? Like, I don't know any of that.
Yeah. And to be clear, you don't have to do track workouts to be a fast runner. You can do everything on the road that we can do on a track, right. But I'm here to talk to you about the benefits of the track. And so one thing I really like about the track is most tracks are 1,600 meters. So it's almost a mile. And it's split into quarters. So 1 lap is a 400, 2 laps is an 800, 3 laps is a 1,200, and 4 laps is 1,600.
I have a question about this.
Yes.
If you stay in the same lane, again, I really don't know about the track. So if you stay in the same lane, I feel like the inside lane is going to be less.
No, the inside lane is the 400, and they're marked. So if you start in the second lane, you start a little earlier and end a little later. So it's all supposed to be, no matter what lane you're in, you're doing 400 meters. You just have to follow the markings on there.
Okay. Good
so,
to know.
I mean, and some tracks don't have a marking, but if you run in the first lane, it's 400 meters.
Okay, from point to point.
There are some tracks that are 200 meters. Some middle schools have 200 meter tracks, but most of them are standard 400 meter tracks.
And so a 400 meters is about a quarter mile because 4 of those would equal almost a mile.
Almost a mile. It's not
exactly.
It's not exactly a mile. So if you have to know that. So if you use your Garmin on the track, which I never recommend, I really prefer you to have it on manual on the track. The biggest thing that I like about the track is it's a good way to learn pacing. So most runners have like 1 or 2 paces. Mm-hmm. They run everything the same pace, or they run really slow and really fast, and they don't use any of their gears in between. And we have a lot of gears that get us really physically fit.
And again, everybody went through this when you first start running. Everybody runs one speed all the time for however many miles you want to do, and then you start saying, okay, I'll go a little faster, I'll go a little slower, but it takes years to learn these gears, and that's what track can do.
Yeah. So and people think like I'm some kind of wizard, but I'm not at all. It's all a formula.
You don't have to tell us that. You can just tell us how.
I know, but I like to be, transparent. But like a 5K, like your 5K speed should be different than your 10K speed, should be different than your half speed, should be different than your marathon speed. And when I train somebody on the track, I think the biggest mistake that people make is they still train too hard on the track. Like your goal in a track workout is not to go out there unless you're trying to train your 200 meter or your, 100 meter race, which there aren't very many of those guys. So
well, yeah. And most of us, who are trying to exercise for fun or run for exercise, we're going to run more than 200 meters. So there's no really.
Yeah. Occasionally you do want to run all out on the track occasionally, but it should be very seldom. So most of it is running 5K speed, running mile speed, running, 10K or lactate threshold speed. You learn how to run all these different speeds on the track. And since it's flat and you don't have to stop at roads and you don't have to worry about your Garmin, you can just put it on manual and you can hit your lap. And then what I do is I stand on the side and I time everybody so that the goal is you shouldn't have to look at your watch. Like if my old coach, she used to make me, she'd be like, I want you to run 8-minute pace on the track. And she would take away my watch and read my splits. And it was the sole goal was for me to learn what marathon pace felt like. Yeah. So that because we didn't have Garmin's back in the day. So you had to know what it felt like when you went out in the beginning of a marathon, right? So you learn different speeds, you learn different paces. With a group, it's really kind of special because as long as you're not racing each other, because that can be detrimental. But it's really nice. I set my people up based on their 5K time, and they run based on the time they are supposed to hit. So it's nice to have the accountability of somebody else that kind of helps you stay in your right pace range without like blowing it out.
And so you said a group, but like if someone just goes to a track, what should they do beforehand so that so that they would know?
That's a good question.
You know, how fast they should be running or how slow they, whatever.
Yeah.
What should they know before they go to the track if they're just going by themselves?
If you're going by yourself and you're going to just start a track workout, always warm up. I always say warm up like 10 to 15 minutes, nice and easy jog. Do some, plyometrics just to get your body ready to run a little faster. Some strides, some butt kicks, some high knees, stuff that we talked about in previous podcasts. But
no static stretching.
No static stretching, like dynamic warm-ups. Anything that's going to get you ready to run. And then once you get on the track, it can be confusing because people are like, what should I do? And it really does depend on what you're training for. If you're training for a 5K, you should stick to 5K and mile pace stuff-ish. Okay to throw in some tempo work at 10K pace. That's good.
So explain when you say 5K pace.
Yeah.
What does that mean to someone?
Yeah. So everything's a calculator. I use like VDOT sometimes. I use Jack Daniels sometimes. I use Macmillan sometimes. It's a calculator. So I literally plug somebody's time in. This is secrets to coaching right now. I plug somebody's 5K time in, and it tells me everything that you're supposed to hit on the track. And if you don't, you can find these calculators online, but it's pretty easy to go run a 5K, and you have to run a 5K all out. It's got to hurt, like make it hurt. And then after you have that number, you can do a lot with that number. You can say, you need to train at that 5K pace. I think where people make mistakes is they're like, oh, if I want to get faster, I want to try to hit my goal 5K time. And that's not really accurate. You really should train where you're at. And the only time we really use goal pace is if, say, you do a 5K and the calculator says, I'll use an example. I'll use me as an example. Like my 5K is 22 minutes. So my 10K, according to the calculator, should be 45 minutes. If I'm not hitting 45 minutes, then I can do goal 10K pace at 45 minutes because that my 5K says I can do it.
But when you wouldn't run 6 miles at 10K pace.
No, you break it all up on the track and you try to run. If I tell my clients run, like this morning, for instance, it sounds more complicated than it is. But this morning we did 800 at 5K pace, a 200-meter jog recovery, and then we did a 400 at mile pace, 200-meter recovery, and another 400 at mile pace. And we did it 3 times. So they are learning what 5K pace feels like, what mile pace feels like, and they're also learning how to turn their legs over when they're tired because they're flipping back and forth between paces. The benefit to that is that we learn to control our pace, which is winning at life.
Yes.
If you're a runner.
Yes.
Like this is the thing, like you should never get to the start line and be like, I wonder what I can run today. You should be doing workouts that are based on what you want to run, and you should know within probably 30 seconds what you can run that day. So you're not like getting on the start line being like, oh, what do I do? What do I do? And that takes that anxiety away.
Right. Because we do say that really the only time you should be going 100% is on race day, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you should never push yourself to the limit.
Yeah.
Before that, all the work is put in, so it builds on itself so that on race day, you have this goal and you know that is possible to hit.
Yeah. And honestly, like this is, every coach has a little different philosophy. My philosophy too is if you're training your 5K, you really don't want to do more than 2.5 miles of work on the track. If you're training your 5K, like work. So at 5K pace. Because otherwise, if you're doing 3 miles at 5K pace, you're racing your workout, right?
Or you could, or that means you would be able to go faster because that's if you're not at 100%, then that just means 100%, you could go higher than that.
So I would argue that you want to keep them between 2 miles and 2.5 miles. And then if you're doing some like longer distance stuff on the track and you're training for your marathon or your half marathon, then you do a longer workout at a slower pace. So you'll do like half marathon pace and 10K pace, and you do a lot of that, like more, you do everything slower. So you're still getting very physically fit. You don't have to think about it as much on the track.
Yeah.
You can just kind of like get into that metronome feel and really get into, you have to use self-control because you really shouldn't be running all out either. But you really want to practice that leg turnover and, without any stress really.
Well, and again, doing that, changing speeds and trying to keep a speed is so much easier to do when you don't have to worry about a car or, stopping for an intersection or the breaks in the road or the curbs that, there's so much that can get in your way. We're lucky in Tampa. There is Bayshore Boulevard, that is a little bit, at least it's a long stretch without an intersection, but still there's a lot of people out there.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's why, certainly a track would be very advantageous for these kind of workouts.
Yes.
So a track workout is not just going out and running slow around a track.
No, you can do that. I did that this morning.
Yes,
I just
you
ran 3
can
miles
do that,
easy
but that's not
around
what
the
we're
track.
saying when we say track workout.
No, I love a tempo run on the track. Like I
Tell
love
people what that means.
A tempo run is like tempo is anything from like pretty much a little faster than half marathon pace to marathon pace, longer run, and it's usually between 20 minutes and 40 minutes depending on what you're training for. I like to go out there and just do 20 minutes on the track where I know I can just get into the groove and I know I can just plow along and not have to worry about anything. Cars can be stressful on a tempo run for sure. And it's just nice to learn pacing that way. And every once in a while, like every time you're on the track and you check your watch, you're breaking your stride.
Yep.
Anytime you're on the road and doing it, you're breaking your stride, which is wasted energy. So I like people to not look at their watch. And that's why I'm timing people, because I want them to hear the time and say, oh, I'm on, or hear the time. And then like some of my crew this morning, they were like, ooh, that was a little slow. I got to speed up the next lap. And then they course correct the next lap. So
that is very helpful. And I'm saying that because I don't know what it's like out there. And I think that would be very helpful to know what it feels like to run at that speed, so that when, like what happened to me in my Indianapolis race, my watch was all off because of the buildings and things like that. So I was sort of guessing. Thankfully, my partner Joe did his watch was working, but I had to be like, okay, I think this is about a 10-minute mile pace because I've done it enough.
Yeah.
That if I can keep it this way,
for sure.
But I would not have. I mean, if I had not, more than a decade of work, I wouldn't have known what a 10K pace felt. I mean, what a 10-minute mile pace felt like.
So as a coach, it's very helpful to have people on track because I can have, like this morning, I had my fastest guy is like an 18-minute 5K right now, and then
very fast.
Then my slowest is like around a 31-minute 5K right now. So I can coach all of them at one time on the track, which is really neat. And it's like the only time that you can have people of all abilities doing a similar workout. And, I can watch their form. I can watch their pacing. Sometimes the workouts depend on who I see there, who's coming. Like one of my guys is really struggling with like going out too fast. Mm-hmm. He just can't hold back. And so when you have a group, it's really neat because once people learn how to hold back, then they can really teach other people in the group. And so then I say, just stand behind this woman. Okay. And then he stands behind and then he learns. And then now he's doing it on his own, where last week the workout was 4 by 1200. And I made them do like a moderate first lap, moderately hard second lap, and an all out third lap. And so by the fourth 1200, he was really getting the hang of it. And he's like, oh, I could really feel good at this. And I'm like, yeah, this is what we should do every interval.
Right.
But it's a really easy way to do that and experiment with what you can do without the stress of like, blowing up and then being out in the, because if you run your track workouts too fast, you still can blow up. And that's not what we want. But at least you're at the track and you can drive home.
Yes.
If you blow up on the road, you're kind of like, well, this is going to be a long road back home.
Yep. That's only happened to me one time.
Yeah.
And I was like,
and then you never do that again, right?
Never, yes. As I trudged home in the middle of June thinking, I'm so hot. This is awful. I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to figure out a different way. So Yes. I had not thought about that either. That,
Yeah.
Yes. You don't want to ever blow up, but at least you can just,
Yeah.
you're only, you're less than a quarter mile.
Yes. And always start your intervals conservatively. Always. Like I will be the first person that if I see somebody going out too fast, I'm like, okay, fine. Then you're holding it. You have to hold it now. And because I cannot stand if you're running and you're blowing up in a workout, that means you ran your workout too hard. You're racing your workout. So you're always better off going too slow than too fast 100% of the time, because you're still going to gain the fitness from that. If you go out too fast, you kind of just, lit your match and let it go. So a lot of times I'll be like, well, you better hold it now. And then they learn the lesson. Yeah. They don't do that again.
It's funny how you're very good at teaching lessons.
Yeah. I know that they have to do it through their own practice a lot of times. So yeah.
And what was it like when you first started a track workout?
Yeah.
Because again, this is coming from someone who doesn't know.
Yeah. And this is the intimidating thing, right? So my first running partner in Memphis, I think I told this story where she was in my spin class. I was coaching spin and I was teaching spin, and I was wearing my LaSalle Bank, my first marathon shirt. And she came up to me and she was like, she's an older woman. And she said, hey, I see you ran Chicago. Let's run sometime. And I was like, okay, sure. Like I would run with anybody. Yeah. And so then after my spin class, I go downstairs and she's running on the treadmill and I'm watching her run on the treadmill. And I'm like, this is maybe not a good idea to run with her. She is way faster. So I said to one of the other trainers, I'm like, who is this woman? And they were like, oh, that's Brenda Walton. She's won the Memphis Marathon like 6 times. And I'm like, oh. Yeah. But by the time I turned around to go over there and say, no, I can't run with you, she'd already gone. And we had already made a plan to meet the next morning at 5:30. And I ended up running with her every day for 4 years. She taught me everything I know, very intelligent coach. But it was funny because she invited me to track and I was like the slowest one there. Like they were all sub 3 guys. She ran a 2:46 fast. And they were the ones that taught me, look, you can do a track workout with us. You just have to be back there. And so when everybody's like, so many of my runners will be like, I was the last on the track. I'm like, well, guess what? I got to be the fastest that I ever was by being the last on the track. Okay. Like when you're training with people that are better than you, guess what happens? Yeah. You're going to get better. And ultimately if you're being coached correctly, we meet people where they are. So I wasn't racing them on the track.
Right.
I mean, we would warm up and cool down together, which is where I learned how easy running is easy running, because they would run my pace. Great group of guys. And then on the track, we did our own workouts. So they would give me my pace and, Brenda would say, you can do this, and I'd be like, okay, guys, wait for me.
And they said, no, we're not
going to wait for you, but you can do your own workout. And like, I just stayed in my track. And that's how I learned everything about track. And honestly, it was a very humbling experience, but it was where I learned everything I know. They all trained very smart, and we didn't have Garmin's back then.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. So being on a track was very helpful because you could time it pretty easily with how, so you knew how fast you were going for how long without a guess.
Yeah. It was, I learned how to, like, I remember the first time I went to a track workout, I remember I ran a 90-second 400 and I was like, I didn't know I could run that fast. Like I had no idea. Yeah. And then Brenda was like, yeah, no, that's not your pace, but at least you did it. Like, that's great. Like everybody's like, she's so fast. I'm like, no. I just don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, this is all I had. I gave it all on that.
Yeah. That's all I got. 1 400 for the day. So, I mean, I learned pacing. I learned how to do all of that stuff. That's how I learned how to qualify for Boston, because so much of it is not. And I know Brenda always used to tell me the story about how she used to train really hard and she was chasing people on the track and training. And she was trying to break 3 hours in the marathon. And then she was in the military. So she went to this military base and she met a guy that was training her, and he pulled her back on the track. And he was like, no, you're running these intervals too fast. And so she was away running these intervals. And then she went back to the track group and she broke 3 hours. And they're like, what have you been doing? Yeah. And she was like, well, I slowed down my intervals. And nobody could believe it. It was just like a crazy thing.
And that just goes right back to the very top of the show. I was saying, surprisingly, is running slow can make it more fun, and you're out there more consistently, and then your body adjusts,
and you're not getting hurt.
and you're not getting hurt.
And that's the thing. Like I don't think people realize, like, even when they have a tough marathon, they're still gaining fitness from the marathon, and they're not getting hurt, right? So any race that you get through and you're not getting hurt, if you're going to go to the track and you're going to add speed, you got to be extra careful about your easy runs on the easy days, right? So if you're running that medium pace and then you add track, that's a recipe for getting hurt. You're going to get hurt, right?
And you're going to burn out.
Yeah.
You're not, it's not,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that if you're always running medium to hard, it's just not fun anymore. So you figure out, you give up on it. You go, then you find your next exercise, and that's fine if you like to hop around exercising. But if you want to do something for a long period of time, years and years and years, some of it has to be fun. Some of it has to be enjoyable.
And I would even argue that track is really fun when you're running your easy runs slow. Like, you get excited and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to run hard. And you really can leave it out there. You know, you can really do a kind of hard workout and feel good about yourself. But if you're running that medium pace all the time, you can't hit the numbers you need to hit on the track. You're just too tired.
Right.
So it's a delicate balance, but track is so fun. And so it is so fun.
So would you, let's say someone is thinking like, okay, this could be something I could do. Do they find out public tracks? Like, and are there track workouts that people can find online?
It is so tough in Tampa. I'm not going to lie. Tampa is the only place where I've had trouble finding tracks. And when I was coaching in Memphis and I was coaching in Boston, like, there were tracks open everywhere. Here you have to be, like, you can't go on track during school hours anyway, which that's important.
Right.
It makes sense. So you'd have to go early or you'd have to go late. Coleman is open. It's open at night. It hasn't been open in the morning lately. So, but some of the schools, you kind of have to feel out which ones are open and which ones aren't. It's tough in Tampa, I'm not going to lie. But there's a bunch of track. Like, I have a track program. Dror has a track program. Run Tampa has a track program. So a lot of the coaching groups in the area have track programs, and it's really fun to be with a group. It just makes it that much more fun, as long as you're not crazy competitive and you have to race everybody, because that's not going to work.
It's a track workout for you.
Yes.
It's a you track workout.
Yes.
Other people are around, but it's a track workout for you.
You're not in, like we talked about ego last week. You're not going to improve unless you check your ego at the door. Like even now, like, I say I'm a 22-minute 5K, but not right now. So, like, because I haven't been training hard. So now if I want to go back to track, I have to go back to where I was, right? So, like, I'm 24, probably around 24 right now, because I haven't been training. That's where I train. I don't train at 22 because I'm like, oh, I used to PR at 22, right? That's not how it works.
So, okay. So now we all know sort of the basics of a track workout. You can Google it, find a group that's meeting, or, it's
and
just
try not to be intimidated. Yeah. Ask questions. Like, if you don't know what you're doing, ask questions. There are a couple of rules on the track.
Right. That's what I was going to get to. So a little bit of etiquette, because I teased my show during the newscast. And I said, we're also going to show you a little bit about track etiquette. Yeah. And then Deanne, who ran a USF track for USF, was like, is it, she said the one that you're going to talk about. And I said, yes, that's definitely the one.
Because that's the one that annoys me the most.
And she says, so there are some, like, unspoken rules that I wouldn't know. So that's the etiquette we're talking about, sort of unspoken rules of when you're out there.
So there's a couple of unspoken rules. One, and some of them depend on the coach too. So you got to ask the coach. I am very specific about what I like. When you warm up and cool down with me on the track, you always go the opposite direction and you stay on the outside.
Okay.
So you're always, like, the track has a direction usually. You can pick a direction, but whatever direction you're going to run, I want you to warm up and cool down the opposite direction.
And why is that?
Because you're running around in a circle and you're putting a lot of stress on that hip that's on the inside hip. So if you do your warm up and cool down, it kind of messes up both hips, is what I tell people.
Okay, there you go.
You can equally use your hips when you're doing that. So, and that's like an injury preventive
and
thing.
How do you know which way is the way?
Well, it doesn't really matter, honestly. Like I
These
would
are like
kind of
literal
like
questions.
yeah. If you're there and you're the only one there, you can run any direction you want, and you can be in lane 1. If you're there and there's a group there, or there's people running in a certain direction, follow their direction.
Okay.
And then, like, except for the warm up and cool down, just stay in the outside lanes when you do it, right? The other thing is when you're doing an interval, you can use lane 1 and 2 just fine. If you're in a group and you're training, my etiquette has always been the faster runners get lane 1, always. So, and it's just a respect thing. Like, it's not like I'm not as important as the faster runners. It's not that. It's purely just respect. So somebody that's running behind would yell track. Everybody just kind of steps to the right and lets the runner go through.
Okay, let's say that again.
So if you're running in a group and there's a runner behind you that's faster and you can hear them coming,
right,
they should yell track and you should move just a little bit out of the way if it's a group.
Okay.
Some people say the group is supposed to stay there and the faster runner goes around them.
I feel like that would slow them down.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is why I don't like that rule.
Okay.
But depending on the track coach, some people say, we have had this debate actually at Coleman because some of the other coaches in the area don't do that. So I believe that the person in back that's faster should say track and everybody should just step right to the right. Makes sense to me. They go through.
Yeah, because you want it, the inside, the smaller track, the smaller lane is the one that is exactly 400 meters.
And if you don't want to do that, just use lane 2.
Okay.
If you're doing an interval on the track and it's a recovery time, always step outside. Do not do your recovery in lane 1. Do not do that. That's meant for people running fast. So if you have a little recovery interval and you're going to do like a 200 jog recovery, step to lane 2 or 3 and do that. And then jump back in lane 1 when you're going to start your interval again.
And lane 1 is the inside one.
Lane 1 is the inside.
Okay.
And honestly, if you have some tracks, you have to look at usually they post it if they don't want you to run in lane 1 and 2. Sometimes like the nicer tracks will say nobody can run in lane 1 and 2. And that's because that's for the athletes. Like colleges, especially if it's a rubberized track gets worn more. And so they don't want people just wearing out lane 1 and 2, running only in lane 1 and 2, because then they have to resurface the whole track. So that's okay. Like, it doesn't mean you're a worse athlete because you're running in lane 3 or 4. Just modify. It's okay. And then other than that, you just want to listen behind you. Don't wear headphones.
Don't wear headphones.
Don't wear headphones because you can't hear what's going on behind you, and that can cause a collision on the track. Like, I've seen people collide running on the track, especially if it's dark. It can happen. So be aware of your surroundings. Don't be so into your workout that you can't, see people around you. Especially
because you're saying to change lanes.
Mm-hmm.
So especially then, make sure that when you go from one lane to the next to do your recovery, that you're paying attention to.
Because like a lot of times I've really taught my runners. I mean, my runners are very good on the track. I love them. They've really learned how to do this. But like sometimes when they finish a 400, like people will just stop there. And I'm like, whoa, don't stop. Like run through and run to the other side.
Yeah.
Like, because there might be somebody behind you and then you just collide with somebody. Somebody else is running 800 meters or somebody else is running 1200 and they want to stay on and you just stopped and you just they run into the back of you. So you need to be aware of your surroundings. Especially if it's a busy track. I ran at UCF with my daughter a few weeks ago and the whole team was out there and my daughter was like, oh, I don't think we're supposed to be here. I'm like, it's okay. They're going to use lane 1 and 2. We'll just stay in lane 4 and 5 and do our thing. And that's totally fine. We all want you running. Right. So like everybody is happy that you're at the track.
And it's something to remember that while someone looks like they know what they're doing and you think they probably want me out of the track, they want you there.
Yes.
They want you to keep coming back. Just don't stop in front of them.
Yes. The big etiquette that I do want to talk about, and I'll talk about in my coach's drill because
So all right. So we're gonna. So this is the one that that Deanne brought up. So this is a big one. So Maria's coach's drill. Don't walk in lane 1.
This really gets me really rip-roaring mad. Like, if you want to see me go ballistic, do not ever go to the track and walk in lane 1 or 2. Do not do that. And especially don't do it on your phone, and especially don't do it on with headphones on, because I have had people legitimately walk in lane 1 while I'm trying to do a workout, and they will look right at me and say, I deserve to be here. And you're right, you do. But walkers are supposed to be in lane 3, 4, or 5. That's the rule. That's the etiquette. Tracks are meant for people running faster. If you cannot do that, I totally understand. We want you out there walking in a safe place in the same space that we're in. You just need to be in the outside lanes. It's actually for safety. It's not even just, it's not a jerk thing. It's safety. It's really important.
And that's what I was going to say. It really is, safety. But I mean, if a runner runs into you, that's bad. If they could hurt themselves, you could get hurt. Like, we all can coexist. We coexist on the roads.
And it is legitimate etiquette. That is not, it is just anybody who knows anything about the track knows that that's a rule. It is just a kindness rule. And I've had people, and also like if a lot of people will bring their kids to the track and they'll ride their bikes, outside lane too, outside lane. Like, even if, out of courtesy to the track, lanes 1 and 2 are for runners. So like, there's plenty of lanes in the track. Like, let's not make this a big deal. I have had people be belligerent to me about this, like straight up mean. And I'm like, this is just, you're wrong, actually. Like, I'm not going to fight anybody on this, but like, it's just be in the outside lane. It's just that.
It's the same track. It's the same track. You're still out there. You're still getting your exercise in. One is not better than 5. It's just that somewhere has to be fast. Someone, so that they don't run into each other. It's just how it works.
Yes, and honestly, like, we do have a little bit of a problem in our society with people that are just genetically better. I'm like, some people, like, I'm not going to go to a painting class and like teach the class and like be like, oh, here's it would be terrible. Like, there are like runners, there are some genetically faster runners, and that's okay. Like, we're all different, and there's plenty of room for all of us on the track. It's just that we have to be understanding and kind. That's all.
Don't walk in.
Don't walk.
That was literally the one that Deanne said. She's like, is it going to be not to be slow in lane 1? I go, actually, that's the one.
And I'm sure Deanne has like a different definition of what I think is slow in the lane 1, because Deanne's like super fast. But like, I am very, very, I have 7-hour marathoners on the track with 240 something marathoners on the track, and everybody can coexist and love each other and be kind in my world. Yeah. That's the way I like it. Even if you're a walker. And some of my athletes that like can't, are on recovery, like one of my athletes that was on recovery last night, he came and walked around the outside of the track.
Perfectly
to
acceptable.
Be part of the group, but he wanted to be walking on the outside of the track. Good job, Dougie.
Good job. Good job. So again, this was what I wanted, an episode Maria had pitched, and I said, well, I don't know anything about it. She's like, great, ask me all the questions. So that's what we've done today.
I'll talk about track all day long. I love track. It is so fun. It's a cool, fun thing.
Yeah, one of these days I'm going to get to do it. Obviously, my shift is during when everyone is running track. I get to see all the pictures pop up in my social media while I'm here. But I do think that, first of all, you get a group of people. It's always fun. It's not, I'm not going to say misery loves company, but it's like everyone's doing the commiserating and this saying like, this is hard. We're doing this hard thing together. And then you go and you run those,
and you watch everybody improve, and you're like really helping each other. And it's, I know I'm biased, but I love my group. My group is so supportive and so awesome. And we have a really good time. It's not just, pound the pavement.
Right.
We really do run for fun.
It's still fun, even when it's a little faster, even when it's in a place like the track, which again can be a little intimidating at first. the idea is you make it fun. That way
Yeah.
you're still out there. You go out there, you do your,
Yep.
you become consistent, and that's how you get that.
And I have a new one starting in January. So if anybody wants information, you can go to ontrackrunningacademy.com.
Ask on Strava.
Or you can ask on Strava, and the more the merrier at my track practice. So yeah, you can sign up for that. The sign up won't be until probably the mid-December, but yeah, we do 3 months at a time. Starts in January. So if you want to come try it out, come try it out.
Well, that is Track Workout 101 and a little bit of track etiquette. So thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, Maria, for enlightening me on what these track workouts are.
I know. It's so fun to talk to somebody that doesn't know about it.
I know. Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see y'all a week from now. Bye.